As we've seen over the course of this series, Fallout's developers have drawn from a lot of sources when creating everyone's favorite apocalyptic wasteland, but maybe never more so than when creating the pre-war companies whose presence still lingers after the nuclear holocaust. Pre-war billboards and advertisements serve as a grim reminder of humanity's once advanced civilization. Today we're going to dig into some of the inspirations for Fallout's many pre-war corporations. Of course there are the obvious examples like Nuka-Cola, but you may find yourself surprised by some of the more obscure places that Interplay, Bethesda, and Obsidian have looked for inspiration. In a previous episode, we covered Robert House's connection to the legendary industrialist Howard Hughes, but those comparisons can be taken even further when examining the H&H Tool Company. Like Robert House, Hughes' family fortune was initially founded on tools. In Robert's case, it was H&H, but its real-world counterpart is the Hughes Tool Company, which was created by Howard Hughes' father in 1908. The inspiration is even more clear when looking at the company's similar logos. Though, unlike Howard Hughes, who ran Hughes Tool after his father's death, Robert House was cut off from the company by his brother Anthony House. Anthony also seems to share some traits with Howard Hughes, but not all the good ones, as they both suffered from severe mental illness and paranoia. Radiation King appears to have been the most popular brand of televisions and radios in the old world. The name Radiation King actually comes from the brand of TV used by young Homer Simpson in a flashback found in the Season 6 episode Grandpa vs. Sexual Inadequacy. But maybe you already knew that. What you might not know is that the design of the most iconic Radiation King TV is actually based on the Philco Predicta, an old TV set first released in the late 50s. The strange thing is that they appear to have been far more popular in the Fallout universe than they ever were in the real world. In fact, the model was such a failure that it caused Philco to go into bankruptcy in 1960. The Radiation King jukebox is also based on a real model, the 1946 Wurlitzer jukebox. It is, of course, obvious that the Kodak company was inspired by the real-world Kodak, but the reference goes a bit deeper than it first appears. In Fallout New Vegas, the player may be given a camera called the Kodak R9000. This camera appears to be modeled after Kodak's Brownie Hawkeye, an old-fashioned camera first created in the 1940s. Another interesting example is the Chrysler Motor Company's Corvega, a car that's name is a possible combination of two infamously bad Chevy vehicles, the Corvair and the Vega. The story of the Bish Energy Company in the Fallout 3 add-on Point Lookout contains references to the respected poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, and not only in its name. As you hardcore Fallout fans probably know, the Bish Energy Company was the owner of a research vessel called the USS Ozymandias. This name is no coincidence, since Percy Bysshe Shelley's most famous poem is also named Ozymandias. That's not all. The name of this side quest, An Antique Land, is a clever nod to the first line of the poem. I met a traveler from an antique land. The poem also ends with the line, round the decays of that colossal
wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
Doesn't get much more Fallout than that. Poseidon Energy is obviously a reference to the Greek god of the sea, but it goes deeper than that. The advertisements found within the loading screens for Poseidon Energy states, "Bring your Odyssey with us," while showing Poseidon blowing a ship's sails forward. This is a reference to Homer's Odyssey, where Poseidon is the main antagonist. Well, that and Odysseus' hubris. Not only that, but Poseidon Energy also created a weapon called Archimedes, a weapon that draws down the powers of the sun. This is a reference to the Greek story where Archimedes created a device using a system of mirrors to use the powers of the sun to scorch an enemy fleet. Speaking of Odysseus' Hamartia, Hubris Comics from Fallout 3 seems to have been the biggest comic book company in the pre-war days. The most notable Hubris series, Grognak the Barbarian, is a very obvious reference to Robert E. Howard's most famous creation. However, there is a much more subtle comics-related reference to be found. The writer of Grognak is listed as Morelis, a clever combination of two famous comic book writers, Alan Moore, the writer of Watchmen, and Warren Ellis, the writer of Planetary, Hellblazer, and the video game Dead Space. I probably don't have to tell you that the Fancy Lads Snack Cakes brand bears a striking similarity to Hostess's Little Debbie and Twinkie brands. There's one more subtle reference to be found there though. The slogan, "A big delight in every bite," actually comes straight from Twinkie ads in the late 60s and early 70s, going to prove that yes, Twinkies will survive the apocalypse. You've seen throughout this episode the many ways that Fallout took inspiration from various sources when creating its fictional companies, but the opposite is actually true too. Interplay, the company behind the original Fallout games, loved the first game's Galaxy News Network logo so much that they changed their actual company logo to reflect it. You thought you knew Fallout, but hopefully you've learned just a thing or two more. Do you know any other references we didn't cover here? Share them in the comment section below and we might include it in a future episode. If you like Hidden History, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. I'm Austin, a 20-something nerd, and I hope you liked this episode of Fallout Hidden History. Be sure to check out ShoddyCast on Twitter and Facebook for upcoming updates, and if you hate my voice, love my voice, find me on Twitter at ARHorrigan. I will see you next week.